cost comes in. Think about it this way. You're not making any money while you're in school full-time, so it's not just the cost of tuition, it's also what that income you're missing out on. But don't worry, we'll definitely get into the potential return on your investment. And even within those elite programs, the ROI can be totally different depending on your career path after you graduate. We'll get to all that.
Okay, so there's a lot to consider even within the top tier. But what about some of those less famous, maybe more affordable options? I see you've got some stuff here on public universities. I'm looking at this info on UGA's Terry College of Business, ranked around 40th. How does their cost compare to a place like Wharton?
Oh, that's a great example. It really shows the difference between public and private schools. So for students who don't live in the state, Wharton's tuition is something like 75% higher than UGA. So it makes you wonder, could you get similar career outcomes from a public school MBA, but for a lot less money?
Yeah, I bet a lot of listeners are thinking the same thing. Now, you also included this info on BYU Marriott School of Business. Their tuition is, well, it's pretty unusual.
Yeah, BYU Marriott is a really interesting case. They purposely keep their tuition super low. Actually, they even subsidize it for members of the LBS church. It kind of goes against what most people think, that you have to spend a ton to get a good business education.
And they've got some pretty impressive results. Looks like their grads are more than doubling their salaries within 5 years after graduation. $47,000 pre-MBA and then up to $108,000.
It's a great example of a value program. You know, a school that might not have the same name recognition as like an Ivy League school, but really delivers when it comes to ROI. It really shows that high rankings don't always mean the best return on your investment.
Okay, so maybe prestige isn't everything. Now, before we get too deep into individual schools and specializations, I think we need to talk about how people think about ROI, because I see you've got research here on both short-term and long-term returns.
Yeah, that's really important to think about. Some people just look at that initial salary bump after they graduate, but the bigger picture is what happens over many years. And you've got some pretty crazy numbers here. Graduates from top 50 MBA programs earn a median of, get this, $5.7 million over 35 years.
Yeah, and that's $2.3 million more than someone who just has a bachelor's degree. That's what we call the MBA premium, that extra earning power you get.
And it tends to build over time, especially if you end up in a leadership position. So even though that initial investment seems like a lot, it could pay for itself many times over during your career.
Yeah, exactly. It's about thinking long-term. Now, looking at your research, I see you also break it down by career path.
Yeah, and that's where it gets really interesting. You've got consulting, finance, tech, healthcare, and even entrepreneurship. I mean, we could do a whole separate educational dive on each one.
But let's try to hit the main points. So first up, consulting. You know those MBB firms? McKinsey, Bain, BCG? They're like the rock stars of the MBA world. Those salaries?
Oh yeah, you're looking at base salaries over $175,000 plus a signing bonus of like $30,000. So over $200,000 right out of school. It's crazy competitive. It seems like everyone wants to be a consultant these days.
But those high salaries come with a lot of pressure, right? Long hours, lots of travel. What about the long-term prospects in consulting?
Oh yeah, it's definitely known for intense hours and lots of travel. But if you can handle it, it can be a great way to move up in your career. Experienced consultants can end up in top executive roles making, like, 7 figures.
Okay, so consulting. High pay, high pressure, high reward. Now, what about those MBAs who are more interested in the world of finance? I see you've got some pretty interesting details on Wall Street and investment banking.
Finance is another popular path for MBAs, and yeah, it's known for big salaries, but also a very demanding work environment. Investment banking associates, those are the folks fresh out of their MBA programs. They can expect to make between $125,000 and $150,000 in base salary.
And that's before those crazy Wall Street bonuses, right? I've heard stories about bonuses that are better than some people's yearly salary.
Oh yeah, it's true. Bonuses in finance can be huge, especially if you're a top performer and the market's doing well. Your first-year compensation could easily reach $250,000 or more. But finance can be unpredictable. High rewards also mean high risks.
So finance is like a roller coaster, potentially very lucrative, but maybe not for everyone. Now, I'm curious, with those incredible salaries in consulting and finance, why are we seeing so many MBAs going into tech? Is it all about stock options and Silicon Valley dreams?
Yeah, tech is definitely the hot thing right now. Companies like Google, Amazon, Microsoft, They're hiring a ton of MBAs for roles in product management, operations, strategy, and the pay's pretty good too.
So, what are the salary expectations like compared to those big finance and consulting firms?
Well, the average starting salary for MBAs in tech is around $125,000 to $130,000. So maybe not as high as consulting or finance right away. But I'm guessing those stock options are a big part of the appeal. The chance to get in early on the next big thing.
Yeah, for sure. Those equity or stock grants are where the real money is in tech. If you end up at a successful startup or a company with a stock price that's going way up, those options can be worth a fortune.
So tech has the potential for a huge payoff, but it's a bit less predictable. You're basically betting on the company's future. And it's not all about those unicorn startups either.
Right, you've got plenty of MBAs finding success in established tech companies, moving up into leadership roles where they can earn $300,000 or more, plus those valuable stock options.
So there are lots of opportunities within tech, each with its own risks and rewards.
I see you also have some data on healthcare management. That seems pretty different from those high-flying fields we just talked about.
Healthcare is interesting. The salaries might not be as flashy as finance or consulting, but there's a huge need for good leaders, and it's known for being a stable industry. Plus, it offers a different kind of reward, like a sense of purpose.
Okay, you've got me interested. So what are we talking about salary-wise for healthcare MBAs?
The average base salary for medical and health services managers is around $104,000. But keep in mind that includes folks with just a bachelor's degree. So I'm guessing someone with an MBA is making a good bit more than that.
Yeah, definitely. MBA grads in healthcare usually start somewhere between $85,000 and $120,000 depending on the specific job and where they are.
Not bad at all. What about career growth? Can you work your way up and get to those six-figure salaries we've been talking about?
Oh, for sure. Experienced healthcare execs like hospital CEOs or directors at pharmaceutical companies can make well over $200,000, and those at the very top, they can even pull in millions.
Wow. Okay, so healthcare might not be the fastest way to get rich, but the long-term potential is definitely there.
Okay, we've covered a lot here. Different industries, potential salaries, challenges, risks. But you've also got all this information on different MBA program formats. Full-time, part-time, executive MBA, online programs. Each one has its own approach, and I'm sure that affects the ROI too.
Absolutely. And the format you choose should really match your goals, lifestyle, and finances. Let's start with the classic full-time MBA.
Okay, the full-time MBA, 2 years on campus, totally immersed in the whole MBA experience. Sounds intense.
Oh, it is. Full-time programs cram a lot into a short amount of time. Tough courses, networking events, recruiting, company visits, and of course those legendary MBA parties. It's a whirlwind.
Wow, you're really going all in. But I bet that means some sacrifices, right?
Definitely. The biggest one is that opportunity cost we talked about earlier. You're giving up 2 years of income, and that can be a big financial hit, especially when you add in those $300,000 price tags we discussed earlier.
A big part of that is the salary you're not making.
Right? Plus you have the cost of tuition and living expenses. Many full-time students take out loans, so they're actually accumulating debt during those 2 years.
Okay, so full-time MBAs, big potential rewards, but also big potential risks. You really need to plan carefully. What about people who want to keep working while they get their MBA?
That's where part-time MBA programs come in. They let you keep working while you go to school. Classes are usually in the evenings or on weekends, so you can fit it around your job.
So part-time MBAs offer more flexibility and less financial risk, but I'm guessing they come with their own challenges.
Oh, for sure. Trying to balance a full-time job and coursework is really tough. You need to be super disciplined and good at managing your time.
I bet those nights and weekends are pretty packed. What about networking and recruiting? Is that harder for part-time students since they're not on campus as much?
Yet another thing to consider, part-time students still have access to networking and career services, but it's not quite the same as the full-time experience.
So part-time MBAs are a more gradual path, but it's still not easy. You need to be ready for a busy schedule and to really put yourself out there to make connections and find career opportunities.
Now, what about those who are already moving up in their careers and want to take their leadership to the next level? We talked about executive MBA programs before. What's different about them?
Executive MBA programs are designed for people who already have a lot of experience, usually those in senior management or executive roles. They're already successful, they just want to take it to the next level.
So they're already pretty high up on the corporate ladder. What are they hoping to get out of an MBA?
EMBA programs offer a mix of high-level business knowledge, executive coaching, and a chance to network with other successful leaders. It's like an exclusive club for those at the top of their game.
I bet a lot of those MBA students get help paying from their companies, right?
Oh yeah, it's pretty common for MBA students to get some financial support from their employers. Companies see it as an investment in their top talent.
Makes sense. Now, what about online MBAs? They seem to be getting more and more popular. It seems like a great option for people who can't or don't want to move or put their careers on hold.
Online MBAs are all about flexibility. You can study from anywhere in the world and often at your own pace. Plus, you can keep working while you earn your degree, so you don't have that opportunity cost we talked about before.
So you get the best of both worlds, the convenience of online learning and the career benefits of an MBA. But there have to be some downsides, right?
The biggest one is that you don't get the same networking and recruiting opportunities. It's just not the same as being on campus and interacting with classmates, professors, and recruiters face to face.
So, online MBAs might not be the best fit for someone who wants to make a big career change or break into a really competitive field.
That's a good point, but online MBA programs are gaining respect, and many employers see the value in what online grads bring to the table.
Okay, so online MBAs offer a flexible and affordable path, but you need to be aware of the limitations.
Now, before we move on to the other benefits of an MBA, I want to talk more about the financial side. You've got some good info here on scholarships, sponsorship, even loan strategies.
It's really important to have a plan for how you're going to pay for your MBA, no matter which path you choose. Let's start with scholarships.
Okay, free money. Tell me more.
Most MBA programs offer scholarships based on merit or financial need. And the good news is, even those elite M7 schools have lots of scholarship money to give out. So even if you're not rich, there's a chance you can get some help.
Absolutely, and there are all sorts of specialized fellowships out there. The Fort Fellowship for Women, the Consortium for Underrepresented Minorities, and the Reaching Out MBA Fellowship for LGBTQ+ students, just to name a few.
Wow, lots of options. I bet those can really make a difference in the overall cost.
They can be a game changer. And then there's employer sponsorship. We talked about that earlier, especially for those part-time and EMBA programs.
Right. Some companies are willing to pay for their employees' MBAs. Seems like it's good for both sides.
Yeah, it can be. Some companies offer tuition reimbursement where they cover part of your costs each year. Others will pay for your entire MBA if you agree to stay with the company for a certain amount of time.
So if you're lucky enough to have employer sponsorship, that can really reduce how much you have to pay out of pocket. But what about those who might need to rely on loans?
Loans are a reality for a lot of MBA students, but they don't have to be scary. The important thing is to borrow smart and have a plan to pay it back.
So be smart and strategic about it. What advice would you give to someone who might be hesitant about taking out loans?
First, look at all your options. Federal loans, private loans, even refinancing. You need to compare interest rates and terms to find the best deal. And once you have an idea of how much you'll make after graduation, create a budget and a plan for paying back those loans.
So treat it like a business investment. You're putting money in up front, and you need a plan to earn that money back and get out of debt.
Exactly, and you might even be eligible for loan forgiveness programs, especially if you're thinking about a career in nonprofits or the public sector.
So much to think about. It seems like there's a path for everyone, no matter their financial situation. But before we move on, can you tell me a bit more about some of the different loan types? What's the difference between a direct unsubsidized loan and a grad plus loan?
Direct unsubsidized loans are for all grad students regardless of financial need. They have fixed interest rates set by the government. Grad plus loans, on the other hand, are for graduate and professional students, and they can cover costs that other financial aid doesn't. But they usually have higher interest rates than direct unsubsidized loans.
Okay, so there are definitely some differences to consider when it comes to loans, but it's great to know there are options.
You know, we spent a lot of time talking about the financial aspects of an MBA, but there's so much more to it than that. You've got all this research on the other benefits, networking, career switching, personal growth, all this stuff that doesn't have a dollar sign attached to it but can still make a huge difference in your career and life.
I completely agree. Those financial returns are important, but the real value of an MBA goes beyond just money. Are you ready to dive into the world of connections, career transformations, and personal development?
Absolutely, let's do it. Okay, so let's get into those other benefits. I think networking is the one that always comes up first. Looking at all this research on MBA alumni networks, it seems like you're pretty interested in that part too.
Yeah, that's one of those things that's hard to really grasp until you experience it yourself. Imagine like suddenly you're part of this group of super driven, ambitious people from all different industries and all over the world.
Kind of like a secret society, but instead of taking over the world, it's all about career success.
Exactly. You need a contact at a certain company? Boom! MBA network. Need advice on a tough business problem? MBA network again. And the numbers prove it. LinkedIn found that over 60% of people say their network helped them find a job.
Wow, so it's not just hype. Those connections you make in business school can really make a difference. But is it just about getting your first job after you graduate?
No, not at all. It's a long-term thing. That network can open doors for years, even decades later. You might end up doing business with people you went to school with who are now CEOs, or maybe turn to them for advice as you move up in your career.
That's incredible. It seems like that network would be especially valuable for someone who's thinking about switching careers. And speaking of that, your research shows how many MBAs use their degree to move into totally different fields.
It's like a career reset button. You might come in as, say, an engineer or a teacher, and then leave as a consultant, a marketer, or a tech product manager. An MBA can open up careers that you never even thought possible.
You mentioned wanting to explore the healthcare industry, so imagine going from, let's say, finance to a leadership role in a hospital or a pharmaceutical company. An MBA could make that happen.
Exactly. And that kind of flexibility is super valuable these days. The job market's always changing, so having those skills and that credibility can help you adapt and stay ahead.
So, even if you're not totally sure what you want to do after your MBA, it can give you the tools to explore different options and then make a strategic move when the time is right.
Now, besides the career benefits, there's also the prestige factor. You've got some articles here about how having an MBA, especially from a top school, can really boost your reputation.
Yeah, you can't deny it. An MBA from a prestigious school carries a lot of weight. It tells employers that you've been through a tough program, learned a lot, and have the potential to be a great leader.
It's like a stamp of approval from the business world. How does that actually work in the real world?
Well, it can give you a real edge. Recruiters might notice you more, headhunters might reach out, and you could end up being considered for jobs that most people don't even know about.
So, it's not just about getting any job, it's about getting the right job. A job that you might not have even thought possible before.
That's true. And I think the big question on everyone's mind is an MBA actually worth it?
That's the million-dollar question, right? And like most things in life, the answer is, it depends. But it's probably safe to say that an MBA can be a powerful tool for advancing your career, growing as a person, and achieving your dreams.
It's not a guaranteed ticket to success, but it can definitely help you get there faster, giving you the skills, connections, and credibility to do great things and make a real impact.
But in the end, it's up to you to make the most of that opportunity.
Well said. And that brings us to a final thought for you to think about as you continue exploring the world of MBAs.
I always love a good thought-provoking question. Lay it on me.
Even if you're not planning to get an MBA right away, what can you do now to build your network, improve your leadership skills, and explore different career paths?
What a great challenge. Whether you go for an MBA or not, those are all valuable things to work on, both for your career and for yourself.
Exactly. Remember, a fulfilling career is a marathon, not a sprint. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep pushing yourself to grow. Who knows? Maybe we'll see you on campus someday.
That's so true. It's a good reminder that we can all take charge of our own careers and keep learning whether we get an MBA or not.
Thanks for joining us for this educational dive into MBAs. We hope you found it helpful and insightful. And remember, keep learning, keep growing, and keep diving deep.